Abobaku. Abobaku's hands trembled as he held the fruit. His throat was dry, not just from thirst but from pure fear. The snake's head swayed gently, its tongue flicking out, tasting the air. Abobaku dared not move. His thoughts raced, is this how I die? After escaping fire, drowning, and magical queens, will a mere snake finish me? Suddenly, a breeze rustled the leaves. It was as if nature itself whispered to him. His mind calmed slightly. He remembered something an old hunter once told him in his village, in front of danger, your fear feeds it. But if you breathe slowly and stay still, nature may choose to spare you. Abobaku took a slow breath. Then another. The snake seemed uninterested now. Slowly, very slowly, it slithered back into the thick of the tree branches. Abobaku didn't wait. He climbed down the tree as if his life depended on it. He jumped from the last branch and rolled on the ground. He sat under the tree, panting heavily, holding the fruit close to his chest. He smiled. I am Abobaku. If fire, ocean, spirits, and mummy waters could not end me, why would a snake succeed? He said aloud, encouraging himself. I will keep moving. I must find my path, whether on land or in spirit. I will not die. I cannot die. He stood up, dusted himself, and took a huge bite of the fruit. It tasted sweet, maybe not as sweet as Nimi's magical fruits, but sweet enough to fill his heart with hope. Abobaku looked into the endless stretch of the forest ahead. The journey wasn't over. He tightened his wrapper and muttered, let the next challenge come. I, Abobaku, will not fall. And with that, he began walking deeper into the forest, ready for whatever came next. Abobaku had been walking for hours when he noticed the forest slowly thinning out. The air felt strange, heavier. A distant sound echoed through the trees. It wasn't birds or animals. It was a voice, calling his name. Abobaku, 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 you promised. Abobaku, don't run. He froze. He turned around. No one. Abobaku, trembling with fear and burning with anger, shouted, leave me alone. Let me live my life. You chose death, that was your decision, not mine. You became king and died after just one day. That is your fate, not mine. I am not ready to die. I am still young, strong, and full of life. Why should I abandon this sweet earth when I haven't even lived fully? I don't have a stable wife, no real family to call my own. I have a son who doesn't even know his father. His eyes flashed with defiance as he voiced out of anger, if you can't find peace because I'm still breathing, that's your own problem. I owe you nothing. Stay away from me, or I swear, I will kill you again if you dare come near me. With that, he stormed off, stomping deeper into the forest. He walked and walked, yet the path never changed. Days passed, but it felt like he was trapped in the same spot, the heart of the forest swallowing him whole. Then, a voice echoed through the trees, calm, powerful, and chilling. You will remain in this forest forever, trapped without end, until you are ready to return to Akori, until you submit yourself. Abobaku knelt down, his hands clasped tightly as he pleaded, okay. I will go to Akori. Please, just let me out of this forest. I promise, I swear, I will go back to Akori. But in his heart, he had a different plan. He thought that once he got out of the forest, he would simply disappear again and disappoint the spirit, just like he had done back in the spirit land. What he didn't know was that the spirit had already seen through his mind and had it all well planned. The spirit responded calmly, fine. I will let you go. Suddenly, before Abobaku, a clear path opened. Without wasting time, he entered the path, eager to escape. Unfortunately for Abobaku, that path led him straight into the market square of Akori, in broad daylight, on the major market day. The place was crowded, filled to the brim with people. He was shocked. Before he could even gather himself, a loud voice pierced through the crowd, Abobaku is here. Heads turned immediately. All eyes fixed on him. The people were overjoyed, assuming he had returned willingly. Little did they know that it wasn't his intention. Without giving him a chance to escape, they surrounded him and took him straight to the elders. They declared, "He has finally come back by himself. He has realized he was wrong all along." Abobaku, seeing that there was no way out, laughed and said, "Yes, yes. I have failed you all. I accepted to be the Abobaku. It was wrong of me to run. But now, I see it clearly. We all will die one day. What's the point of running? At least I am dying for a noble cause, for the king of our land to be buried so he can rest in peace, and so that another king may rise. It's for the well-being of the kingdom. If I must die 1,000 times for the good of this land, I will gladly do so." The people were touched by his words. They respected his bravery. Because he came back willingly, they didn't bother tying him up or throwing him in a prison while they prepared for the burial. Instead, they put him in a fine, beautiful room. 7 guards were assigned to him, keeping watch as they surrounded his room to ensure he wouldn't escape again. At this point, Abobaku seemed to have given up. Resigned to his fate, he requested one last indulgence, the most delicious foods and 5 women to keep him company for his final night of enjoyment before his death. The people granted his request. He ate and ate to his heart's content and spent the entire night with the 5 women. On the day of the burial, they led him to the prepared gravesite. The pit had been dug, waiting for him. With solemn rituals, they lowered him into the pit to sit while the priests began their chants and incantations. Inside the pit, Abobaku sat with a heavy heart, his face sullen and defeated. No way out this time, he thought to himself. Finally, it is time to die. May my soul rest in peace. But as the chanting grew louder, suddenly, a wild and furious wind blew through the land. Dust and sand filled the air, swirling violently. Everyone instinctively covered their eyes from the storm of debris. The wind roared for several moments, then calmed. When they uncovered their eyes and looked into the pit to continue the ritual, Abobaku was gone. He had run again. Abobaku didn't look back as he fled the burial ground. His legs were swift, his heart pounding. The winds had covered his escape, but he knew the news of his disappearance would spread faster than his feet could carry him. He ran through forest, crossed streams, and after what felt like forever, he stumbled into a new village, the village of Omidon. Omidon was peaceful, far removed from the politics of kings and burials. The people were known for their craftsmanship, carvers, blacksmiths, weavers. They lived simple lives and had no idea who Abobaku was. As he entered their market square, he quickly disguised himself. He tore a piece of cloth, wrapped his head like a turban, and dusted himself to look like a traveling merchant. An elderly woman called out to him, "Young man, you look tired. Are you a traveler?" Abobaku smiled, adjusting his fake merchant bag. "Yes, Mama. I am a seller of stories. I trade tales for food and shelter." The villagers, being lovers of stories, welcomed him. They offered him food and a place to stay in exchange for his tales. That evening, around a large fire, Abobaku sat with the villagers and began spinning tales of kingdoms, gods, and brave men. Of course, he never mentioned his real identity. They laughed, clapped, and even gave him gifts. One night, the guards of Omidon came to Abobaku and said, "The king requests your presence." Without delay, he followed them to the king's palace. Upon his arrival, the king stood up with a warm smile and welcomed him. Turning towards his guests, the king said with excitement, "Oh, here comes our very own storyteller. We are truly blessed to have him in our land. Every night becomes a festival with his stories. He is the reason our evenings are always beautiful." The guests responded with polite smiles. The king then faced Abobaku and said, "Tonight, I have reputable guests, wealthy businessmen from the kingdom of Iten. Before we get into serious discussions, I want you to entertain them with your stories, help them relax and enjoy their evening." But even before the king mentioned Iten, Abobaku had recognized them. They were from Iten, the very kingdom where he had once deceived the people and escaped disgracefully. The memory of how he manipulated them into believing he was the God's messenger flashed in his mind. Luckily for him, they hadn't recognized him yet. So Abobaku maintained his composure and relaxed. He began his storytelling, charming the room with his humor and wit. But after a few moments, one of the traders interrupted, narrowing his eyes. "You look familiar? Have we met before?" Without skipping a beat, Abobaku smiled and said, "No, sir. I have never seen your face, nor anyone who resembles you, in my entire life until now." The second trader leaned closer to his companion and whispered, "But doesn't he look like that man who deceived us? The one who claimed to have met the gods and led us into a war against his own people?" The first man nodded. "Yes, that's true. The resemblance is striking." Abobaku, now feeling a rising panic, forced a nervous chuckle. "Oh, sirs, that can't be me. The world is full of mysteries. Sometimes, people who've never met can look exactly alike, down to the tiniest detail. Life is funny like that." The men smiled and laughed it off for a moment, but suspicion still lingered. Abobaku continued with his story, but it wasn't long before one of the traders paused him again. "Wait, listen to his voice. Doesn't it sound exactly like the man who deceived us?" The other nodded immediately. "Yes. The tone, the way he laughs, it's exactly him." Abobaku's heart raced. He knew it was only a matter of time before they put all the pieces together and exposed him. Thinking fast, he smiled nervously and said, "Please, sirs, excuse me. I need to step outside to use the restroom." Without waiting for a reply, he left the hall, his mind racing. As soon as he was outside, Abobaku didn't head towards the restroom. Instead, he made his way towards the village exit. He knew danger was closing in fast. Once again, Abobaku had escaped. Abobaku ran through the narrow bush path under the cover of night, his feet barely touching the ground. He didn't know where he was headed, he just needed to get as far away from Omidon as possible. The thought of the eaten traders recognizing him haunted his every step. By dawn, he stumbled into another village, tired and breathless. This village was called Oroko, a peaceful settlement surrounded by thick forests. As he sat under a palm tree to catch his breath, a group of young men gathered around him, watching him curiously. One of them asked, "Who are you, stranger?" Abobaku smiled and replied, "I am a traveler, and a storyteller." Their eyes lit up. "Have you come for the storytelling competition?" Abobaku had no idea what they were talking about, but he didn't hesitate. "Yes, I have." "Good," they said excitedly. "It's happening today. Hope you are ready." He smiled, "We shall see." In truth, Abobaku knew nothing about the competition. But he had always survived by grabbing opportunities without asking too many questions. What's one more? The village of Oroko was buzzing. The king had been sinking into deep sadness. He needed laughter to revive his spirit, and so a grand storytelling competition had been declared. The finest storytellers from far and near had gathered, but none could make the king laugh. One by one, they told their tales. The hall was filled with tales of bravery, trickery, and ancient myths. But the king's face remained stiff, his eyes tired and unimpressed. Frustrated, the king stood up. "Hear me well. Any storyteller who dares to bore me again shall be beheaded." A chilling silence swept across the hall. Fear gripped everyone. No one dared to step forward. Abobaku's heart raced. For a moment, fear tried to take him, but then a voice echoed in his mind, "You made the Marine Kingdom laugh. You made Omidon laugh. Who is he not to laugh, and who is he to kill you? The spirits failed to kill you. The snake couldn't. Will you now die because of a mere story?" As the king turned to leave, Abobaku raised his hand high and declared, "I'm next. Let me tell you a story." Every head turned sharply. Gasps filled the hall. "Oh, what a sacrificial lamb," they thought. The king turned, his gaze sharp. "Are you certain? I will kill you myself if you fail to make me laugh." Abobaku smiled confidently. "You can't kill me. You won't. Because I will make you laugh." The king paused, then sat back, intrigued. Abobaku began. His story flowed like a river, twisting, turning, filled with impossible foolishness and bold wit. He crafted scenes so ridiculous that even the guards had to stifle their snickers. But the king remained motionless, his face as hard as stone. As Abobaku concluded, a deep silence fell. Everyone's eyes shifted from him to the king. Abobaku's heart pounded. So this is how I die. After everything. Then, suddenly, the king leaned forward, his face twitching, then exploded into a thunderous laughter. He laughed so hard that tears welled in his eyes. He pointed at Abobaku, struggling to breathe between fits of laughter. You are insane. I can't even hold it in any longer. You are too funny. Relief washed over Abobaku. From that day, Abobaku became the king's favorite. He dined with royalty, was given a luxurious room in the palace, and was showered with wealth and admiration. He was now the king's right-hand man. But not everyone was pleased. The village's storytellers burned with envy. A stranger has stolen our place. He gets the king's favor while we are cast aside like worthless leaves. Their jealousy boiled until they could bear it no more. They plotted. One night, under the cover of darkness, they kidnapped Abobaku. They dragged him deep into the forest, far from the village lights, until they reached a clearing surrounded by towering trees. They circled him, their faces twisted in bitterness. You think you can come from nowhere and take what belongs to us? We'll teach you a lesson. Abobaku, though cornered, stood firm. His mind whispered again, you are Abobaku. Death doesn't want you. He stared them down. Do you know who I am? The spirits tried, they failed. The marines tried, they failed. Even a snake fled from me. Who are you? What can you possibly do to me? You are wasting your time. As his words echoed, a distant thunderous sound rumbled through the forest, like an approaching storm or an ancient beast awakening. The men froze, glancing around in fear. Panicked, one of them lunged forward and stabbed Abobaku in the stomach. Another followed, stabbing him a second time. They dropped their weapons and fled, disappearing into the night. Abobaku collapsed, blood soaking into the earth. His breath slowed. Is this it? Has death finally come? Watch out for Season 5.